this looks juicy.
How is this all possible?
Think of it as a Google search, except instead of searching only what people make public, we're also looking at everything they don't. Emails, chats, SMS, whatever.
Yeah, but which people?
The whole kingdom, Snow White.
There's something going on inside the government that's really wrong, and I can't ignore it. I just want to get this data to the world. Hey. I feel like I'm made to do this, and if I don't do it, then I don't know anybody else that can. This is everything I have. They're gonna figure out what I've done.
Did you access an unauthorized program?
The government knows that we have these documents now.
You're looking at a possible death sentence.
I can't turn back from this. Watch yourself. The NSA is really tracking every cell phone in the world.
Now, I played the Snowden clip because I watched the movie for the first time last night. I really enjoyed the movie. It was eye-opening, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. That, in combination with the recent news from WikiLeaks and the giant Vault 7 CIA release, really had me thinking about security from all levels. With this information here, basically we see that there has been mass surveillance through various groups of, networks and departments under the CIA that have allowed them to use exploits and tools to gain access to your Apple iPhone, the Android phones, Microsoft Windows. For Pete's sakes, they can even use your Samsung television and turn that into a microphone. They can activate your webcam and see what you're doing, and you don't even realize it. So there's lots of stuff going on that many people have suspected for some time. So if you haven't dug into kind of what's going on there, this is an excellent article from Zero Hedge. Now I'm going to put all the links to everything I'm showing you within the video notes so that you can go right to it. And also, full disclosure here, I am by no stretch of the imagination a security expert. I want to step through some things from the aspect of how can you make your Linux operating system more secure, and I mean that from a multitude of levels. So if we think about these tools that are in place here that purportedly the CIA is using, and I'm sure other giant governmental organizations around the world are able to use, what's to stop crooks from using this to gain access to your private credit card information, to your banking information, to your social security number, things like that? There are people out there whose full-time job is to gain access to your private detailed information and use that to to wipe out your bank account, to ruin your credit, to hold you hostage, trap your documents, on and on and on. The list goes on and on. And this isn't getting better. This is something that's just getting much worse. So this is very broad, but today I want to kind of pull it back in and talk about some tools available within the GNU Linux operating system that will hopefully allow Linux users, which are already, I believe, more secure from viruses and things like that, but now we've got to think beyond just viruses and things. We've got to think about backdoors and exploits and things like that. So hopefully some of these tools you could put in place and just help you to be more secure within your online activities. Alright, so we're going to jump into several things here, and I'm not going to be able to get into details on everything because there's a lot here that we need to cover. But for the most part, we're going to talk about general Linux security and online security. We're also going to cover VPNs, or virtual private networks. We're going to talk some about firewalls as well as encryption. So as we step through this, just think about how you use your operating system day in and day out. Are you someone, for example, who uses the same password on every website? If you are, and someone is able to gain access to that one single password, now they've got access to all of your other sites. So let's start it out simply from there. We're going to talk about password management and the right kind of password. We're also going to take a look at overall security for your operating system. Now, this is an excellent page here that, again, I'm going to link to from the Arch site here on security. And they go through concepts, passwords, storage with disk encryption, restricting root access. This is something that, granted, it's not fun to read through, but if you're serious about improving your security and your online security, this would be a great way to get an overall view of what all things you can put into place as far as security is concerned. Let's also talk about Ubuntu, because Ubuntu is probably one of the most widely used Linux distributions in its purest form, and then there are many other distributions that use the Ubuntu base. Now, Ubuntu 16.04 is a long-term support release and is going to have security updates and things for many years. Now, this is an overview of the security features, and they talk some about all of the built-in features and ways that you can secure Ubuntu. So this would be a good read for you as well. All right, let's talk first about passwords. Now, many people out there, and myself in the past, have been guilty of creating passwords for the various sites that I use that are not what I call high-quality passwords. High-quality passwords are not, for example, the word password, all lowercase. And we laugh at that, but there have been recently high government officials working in campaigns that used very simple passwords and allowed access into a chain of emails that was on the news for months. Now, that's your own fault, because you're not paying attention to your own security. You think either, hey, it'll never happen to me, or you just simply don't know better. So I want to talk about that. There are tools in place that we can use within Linux that not only help us to generate high quality passwords, but it can also store that information for you. If you have high quality passwords on multiple websites with multiple accounts, it could be a full-time job tracking all of that and maintaining all of that. So applications, tools like KeePass, which is one that's widely used, can not only store a high-quality password that is encrypted, it can also store the information about the website, such as names, URLs, so on and so forth, and they have a tool that allows you to generate a high-quality password. So what's a high-quality password? Well, a high-quality password, if you read about it, is more than 8 characters, and it's a combination of things. So it would be uppercase letters in combination with lowercase letters. It would be symbols and numbers in combination with those uppercase and lowercase letters. Avoid using your birthday. Avoid using your name. Avoid using well-known dictionary words. One example of a high-quality password, for example, would be a sentence with a combination of numbers and symbols. So, for example, a password might be, this is my password, which is a high-quality password, asterisk, asterisk, dash, hyphen, cap, so on and so forth. You get the idea. Well, let's face it, we're all in a hurry. Sometimes we don't pay attention. Sometimes we don't want to go through that process. So that's where things like KeePass come into play. You could generate a very high quality complicated password. You can store that information under AES encryption through two-fish encryption algorithm, which is a 256-bit key. It would be very secure. This is open source. So this is a very popular option here within Linux. Now there's another option to manage your passwords, and I've got a video on that through the Cool Linux Tools segment called Impasse. And I'll put a link to Impasse, but we'll pop over to their site. Now I like Impasse because it's cross-platform, so if you dual boot, you run Linux and Windows, or maybe you're just running a Chromebook, for example. This works on iOS, BlackBerry, so on and so forth. It is not completely open source, I do not believe. So you've got to have some trust here. They do use high encryption and that kind of thing. But again, this is a way that you can store those high quality passwords that are individual passwords per site. So just wanted to talk about that some. This is one of those, I'm going to say, first and easier steps that you can take for improved online security. All right, let's move on from there. Let's talk about browsers for a minute. Now you'll see here, I'm using the Opera browser. Now the Opera browser uses or has built into it its own VPN, and we're going to talk about VPNs for a minute. Now, not all browsers are created equal. Some browsers are more secure than others. So I want to talk about, we'll talk about Opera here with VPN, and I'll show you what that is here in just a minute. But there's another browser that is very secure called the Tor browser, or TOR. So the Tor software protects you by bouncing your communications all around a distributed network of relays run by volunteers. Now you got to trust the volunteers all around the world. It prevents somebody from watching your internet connection and from learning what sites you visit. It also prevents the sites you visit from learning your physical location, and it lets you access sites which are blocked. Now, I personally do not use the Tor browser. I'm set up again with a VPN within Opera, and there are other ways to set up VPNs, and we'll talk more about VPNs here in just a minute. But I do want to mention the Tor browser because it can be used in a portable manner, meaning you could use this from a flash drive, and once you've removed the flash drive, any or all information that would have been linked to the Tor browser, which is very little, would be removed from your system, and you'd be really anonymous in that way. What do you say about something that's very anonymous? Well, there's always suspicion there about nefarious ways that it's being used, and I'm sure in some cases that's the way it's being used. But it's also a way for you to browse the web without people tracking you or companies tracking you to find out, what you're researching so that they can send you ads or spam you with email because they think you want to know about, a particular product or something based on what you were searching for online. So that is an option for sure to check out. All right, so let's see if that covers everything. Oh yes, this is an excellent page here, virus software. Now, I think it's a misnomer that, before I get into that, this is funny here. So from Komodo, which is virus software to be used within Linux, giant pain in the ass here is what they're saying. The CIA hacking tools revealed. Let's go back to that. Komodo is a giant PITA. It can and will catch and show your entire chain of execution and a great deal of your file I/O. If you drop and run, it will show where you drop, what you run, and what you run runs. All right, quit sliding here. So basically, Komodo is a colossal pain in the posterior. It literally catches everything until you tell it not to. So basically, they are making a statement off of the recently released information about the CIA and their mass surveillance. Now, Komodo is a tool that can be used for virus software detection. I've got it running here. Well, it's telling me it's already running. There we go. So I've run scans. We're good to go. You can quickly and easily update the virus database. Small file size, doesn't take long to update. There's lots of protection features here within Komodo antivirus, and that's just one option. Now, I bring this all up because Linux is not excluded from the possibility of viruses or malware. And I think you can go online and read articles that say Linux doesn't get viruses. Well, it's not true. We could get viruses. It just so happens we're much better than Windows. We're much better than Mac, I believe. And we have a smaller user base, so we're not as large a target, but that doesn't mean we can't get viruses. Now, we are much more secure. Have I ever had a virus on my Linux operating system? I would answer that by saying no, not that I'm aware of. Am I going to consider using a tool like Komodo in the future? Yes, I think I am. I think it doesn't take a lot of resources. Linux is growing, albeit very slow, but Linux is growing. And the more people who come to Linux, the more growth we have, I think, is going to open up a greater likelihood that we could be infected with some large-scale virus through the Linux community. Now, again, Linux is the way to go if you want to be secure against viruses. It's much, much better than Windows, don't get me wrong. But I don't want us to have a false sense of security, and there are lots of tools available to protect against viruses. So with that said, let's jump over to an excellent site here, or an excellent link to Linux Links, which has 80 of the best Linux security applications. So they group these in antivirus, anti-malware, encryption, firewalls, and we're going to talk about some of this, intrusion detection, network monitoring, stuff I have no idea what it includes, packet crafting, I'm not sure what that is, port scanning, I understand what that is, a vulnerability scanner, log file analyzers, data removal, password management, which we've talked about, VPN, which we're going to cover here, forensics, and other tools. So I'll put a link to this where you can go in and just basically follow these links to learn about what is available there. So excellent link here. All right, let's talk about VPN. And I mentioned earlier that I've got VPN set up within the Opera browser, which I'm using now. So we're going to go to the link where Opera talks about what is VPN. All right, so first of all, before we get into this, if you are using the Opera browser or other browsers that mention that they have VPN, you can go into Settings, and you're going to find, more than likely, it's going to say something like Privacy or Security. In the case of the Opera browser, it's Privacy and Security. Now you've got some options here. For example, send a Do Not Track request. You're going to find that within the Chrome and Chromium browser. And what this does is this sends a request for that particular website that you're visiting not to track you. Now, in the beginning, I think it was made a bigger deal than it is, because obviously they're going to figure out ways that they still can semi-track you. So this is something I turn on, but do I have 100% faith that that particular website that I'm visiting is not tracking me? No, I do not. The other thing that I wanted to just share with you here that I have enabled, and you'll see here it's noted by the blue VPN, is VPN. You simply click Enable, it turns on, it's free, it runs in the background, you don't even know it's happening. So let's go back now and talk about what is a VPN. So VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. So normally your browser connects directly to websites, which allows that website to identify your IP address. So I'm going to put that in layman's terms. Your IP address, let's think of that as a phone number, for example, that you have. The IP address shows up and can, through your internet provider, link back and give an approximate location of where you are. So let's say it's going to get close. In some cases, I've seen it drill down really close, and in other cases, it might show an approximate location, and a lot of times that may depend on how your internet provider or where your internet provider is set up within your state. So I've seen it basically, there are tools out there that you can use to really follow an IP address, and it's really simple and easy to do. And I've seen where IP addresses get it very close, I mean like within the town. So basically this virtual private network reroutes your IP address and makes it look like it's coming from a different location. And the way they do that is it goes through what's called a VPN server and changes that location based on the server settings. So it could be with a random VPN that website sees you as coming from Germany one day and Poland the next, for example. So having a VPN in place can protect you from a location or a general location standpoint. All right, so now that we know what a VPN is, there are other things that can be used besides just the browser. So you could set up, for example, OpenVPN, and this is an Arch article here that describes how you can go in and install and configure OpenVPN that would be suitable for private or small businesses. And this is not easy stuff. This is not stuff for beginners. But a good start is to use, say, for example, the Opera browser and just simply turn on VPN. But then you could also take it to the next level and set up and maintain your own VPN within your operating system. All right, let's look at VPN through Ubuntu. So OpenVPN is a secure, let me move myself out of the way here a little bit. So through Ubuntu, OpenVPN is a virtual private network solution provided in the Ubuntu repositories. It's flexible, reliable, and secure, and it belongs to the family of SSL and TLS VPN stacks. So this is going to step you through installing and configuring OpenVPN to create your own VPN. So if you're using an Ubuntu-based distribution, you can kind of step through this process. So again, it's not super complicated. It's not over the top complicated, but it is a process that you would need to go through, and it would take you some time and take you some work to get all of this set up and in place. Now, there's going to be many other options that I'm not mentioning here. It's just that we've got to step through a lot here. So please, through the video notes, share. This is one of those things where it's important just to share what you use, what you know about. If I'm getting something wrong, I'm not stating something 100% correctly, correct me here, because this is important stuff. This is security. And again, I am by no stretch a security expert. So next, let's talk about firewalls. So first of all, let's go to what is a firewall. So let me move myself again here. A firewall is a network security device that monitors incoming and outgoing network traffic and decides whether to allow or block specific traffic based on a defined set of security rules. So firewalls have been a first line of defense in network security for over 25 years. They establish a barrier between secured and controlled internal networks that can be trusted and untrusted outside of the network, such as the internet. A firewall can be hardware-based or software-based or both. So that gives you an idea of a firewall. It is a way to secure connections from, let's say, your own private server that you have set up in your home and other servers that are on the network through the internet or with your intranet. So if you're set up within a company, let's say, and you're communicating from server to server. So firewalls, there are many open source firewall solutions. There are firewall specific Linux operating systems. And let's jump over here first to Uncomplicated Firewall. Again, we'll have the link. UFW stands for Uncomplicated Firewall and is a program for managing a net filter firewall. It provides a command line interface and aims to be uncomplicated and easy to use. So easy for them to say, right? So this steps you through the installation and configuration, blacklisting IP addresses, and so this would allow you to go in and set up a firewall on your system. Now there are multiple ways to get firewall set up on your system, and another way to do that is with an operating system that has firewall and everything as its main reason for existing. So here we have Clear OS. So there's a community edition of Clear OS. Let me make sure, yep, and Home Edition, Business Edition. And this is something that is very, very serious about firewall settings through the operating system. So this is one option. And then we have here 6 best options for firewall solutions. And so we have Clear OS, which we just talked about, Untangle, which is a quality open source alternative to SonicWall and WatchGuard, as well as IPFire, Smooth Wall Express, and SureWall. This is high-level tools for configuring NetFilter. So, all right, let's just talk about firewalls for a minute. I'm going to move myself out of the way. So, if you can imagine an intruder with all kinds of techniques, and they want to gain access to your system. It could be a denial of service attack, it could be cracking, it could be snooping, or they could infect you with a virus or a worm or a Trojan horse. There's all kinds of ways that people can gain access. And so having a firewall set up is really an important step in your security process. So this is a network secured system, and it acts like a security guard between your internal and external networks. It controls incoming and outgoing traffic using security rules. So these rules specify which connections are allowed based on ports and other things, zones that are all set up. So all of the software featured that's listed here on this page could be set up to handle your firewall. Now, some operating systems like ClearOS are built around firewall and the protocols of firewall. But you could also set up your own firewall, whether that in this case is with a server. It could be a hardware firewall, which is often offered by large-scale companies such as Cisco, or you could set up a software firewall as well. Now let's also talk about, lastly here, encryption. So let's talk about what is encryption. So disk encryption is a technology which protects information by converting it into an unreadable code. So let's just think about it as you've got, let's say, a document with all of your banking information on it. You've got that setting on your server. Well, if someone gains access to your server, they would be able to pull that document in and open it right up and read all of that information. If you had your disk or your particular that particular folder encrypted, the information that's in there would also be encrypted. And so if someone were to gain access to that particular disk or partition and pull that information out, when they go to open things up, they're going to see a jumbled mess of unreadable code. So that's essentially protecting you from them gaining your information. Now, typically that encryption is super high encryption, 256-bit encryption, and that means it's going to take them, unless they have some extremely powerful software, it'll either be impossible for them to open that up and find that information, or it would take a very long time with some very sophisticated software and hardware. So disk encryption software or hardware can encrypt an entire drive. It can encrypt just a partition on your drive, or it could just encrypt a particular folder. So we've got some options within Linux for encryption. And I'm going to go back over to the Arch Wiki, and they're going to talk about disk encryption here, and they're going to step through why you should use encryption, data encryption versus system encryption, various methods, preparation, and how it works. So this would be something you'd want to read through to set up your encryption. But I also want to point you over to something called Tomb. Now there's lots of options again for encryption, and I just say share what you use, share what works for you. But Tomb file encryption on GNU Linux takes care of the skeletons in your closet. So it's 100% free, it's open source, and it's for file encryption. So it's not encrypting your disk or your hard drive, it's encrypting your files. And this would allow you to back up anything that's secret. It's written in code that's easy to review, and since it's open source, the idea behind that is that with many eyes watching it, it's a lot more difficult for bad things to be injected into the software. So it generates an encrypted storage folder that can be opened and closed using the key files, and those key files could be resident on your system, or it could be that those key files are held on a USB flash drive, for example. And so basically it's going to go in and scramble up any information that you have in that storage folder, and then when you need to use it, as long as you have the encryption key, again, be it on your hard drive or on your USB stick, then it's going to unscramble that document and you would be able to use it and make sense of it. So this steps you through installation instructions, and here is a video. Now this goes back to 2014, but here's from the Linux Action Show, the guys talking about Tomb and why they would use it and that kind of thing, and then you see here how you can step through and install it. So, you know, should you use full disk encryption? I'm going to leave that up to you. I would say if you've got anything remotely important, anything that you want to protect, be it, you know, birth dates, social security numbers, things like that, at the very least, use file encryption for those important documents. As we know now, and as we're learning what many people have suspected for quite some time, there are tools being used in ways that were never intended. It was never meant to be that someone could watch you through your gaming console, or that someone could tap into your very own webcam on your computer and use it to watch you. So it's up to you to protect yourself. It's up to you to be smart about it. You have some steps to protect your privacy, to protect your important documents, to protect things that could really ruin your life. If your credit is ruined, you know, I know here in the States, credit is all important. If your credit's ruined, it's hard to recover from that. It's one thing if, you know, they gain access to a credit card, you know, for the most part you're protected there if you act in time, but it's a whole nother if they've wiped out your life savings and ruined your credit. So hopefully some of these tools I've talked about make you stop and think. At the very least, change your passwords. Use high quality passwords and change your passwords frequently. Limit what you store online. Now we have to all be also worried about how secure are all of these cloud services we're using. You know, I use Google Cloud Services for business. Think about what it is you're putting online. Don't take for granted that we're safe just because someone like Google says we're secure. They say that until they aren't secure, and then the news breaks that, you know, 1.5 million passwords were accessed, and we hear that all the time. So it's the world we live in. It's something we all have to face. It's something that you deal with, and hopefully some of these tools, if you're a Linux user, some of these tools can allow you to increase your security on a multitude of levels. All right, hope this helps. Hope this is something that, like myself, after watching Snowden, hopefully this kind of gets your gears turning, and maybe you can take a look at how you're securing yourself. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we will check you later.